Hi, I'm Daniel Gold, and welcome to the Gold Standard Leadership Lab. By day, I'm a partner at a leading advisory firm where I draw upon my background as an attorney to help my clients succeed. This podcast, though, is my personal project, completely separate and apart from my day job, but reflects the same passion that I exhibit everywhere for teaching, mentoring, and helping others succeed through simple, impactful lessons. It is my hope that you'll walk away with practical takeaways to help you on your leadership journey. Thanks for being a part of this community and for joining me in the Leadership Lab. Let's get started. I think it's fair to say that I fall under the category of an early bird. My morning routine starts at 4:30 a.m. However, the other day, it just wasn't happening, and it didn't happen at 4:45, and it didn't happen at 5:30 either. At about 6 a.m., I finally got out of bed. It was my wedding anniversary the day prior. We had a late evening. In the middle of the night, our teenage daughter comes to us not feeling well, and by the time I finally got back to sleep, my 4:30 wake-up just wasn't happening. And I was hard-pressed to calmly fit in a morning meditation or a journaling session since I needed to be at my desk early that morning as well to prep for a client presentation. So I did something that felt uncomfortable for someone as routinized as I am. I adapted. I moved my run to the afternoon. I showed myself grace instead of guilt. I found 10 minutes after lunch to sit on my meditation pillow and breathe. I got back on track without spiraling into some sort of self-criticism. It was during that afternoon run that I realized something that applies to leadership as much as it applies to personal discipline. Executing my morning routine is very, very important to me. And the reason why it's so important is because it sets my day in the right direction. I also very much love structure, and I love systemizing my life. My morning routine exists for a reason. The meditation, the journaling, the reading, the running, these practices anchor my day and prepare my mindset for whatever may come next. The structure helps create consistency, which to me is necessary to formulate habits that fuel high performance. But here is an uncomfortable truth. The most disciplined people are the ones who know how to recover gracefully when the plan falls apart. There's a psychologist by the name of Stephen Hayes. He's the founder of acceptance and commitment therapy. And he calls this psychological flexibility. Basically, it's the ability to stay present and open to experiences, even difficult ones, while continuing to act in ways that are aligned with your values. His research shows that psychological flexibility is linked to reduced anxiety, depression, stress, and that it allows people to persist in meaningful tasks even when conditions aren't ideal. The key insight here really is that while structure is what is needed, too rigid of adherence to a schedule, that often backfires. Being flexible isn't a weakness, but rather a form of strength that keeps you moving forward when circumstances shift. But what's equally important is that when I couldn't go for a run that morning, I had a choice. The choice was to beat myself up for missing my routine, spiral into guilt, and let that negative energy color my entire day. Or I could give myself grace, acknowledge what happened, recalibrate, and find a workaround. Research from Kristen Neff at the University of Texas supports this approach. Her work on self-compassion shows that people who treat themselves kindly after setbacks perform better over time than those that engage in harsh self-criticism. Self-compassion individuals aim just as high, but they aren't as devastated when they don't reach their targets. That's an important distinction. Those type of people, the self-compassionate ones, they're more likely to try again after failure and persist in their efforts to keep learning. Neff's research also dispels the myth that self-compassion leads to complacency. The data, really interesting, actually shows the opposite. Self-compassion is positively associated with mastery in your goals because of the intrinsic motivation to learn and grow, and negatively associated with performance goals or the desire to enhance one's own self-image. People who practice self-compassion maintain high standards while sustaining their effort over time. They're kinder to themselves in a way that fuels persistence rather than undermining it. Look, the lesson here for leaders is that the voice in your head that says you failed, you're weak, you can't even stick to a simple routine drains unnecessary energy. One of the most effective strategies for maintaining consistency is pre-planning for disruption. Peter Goldwitzer's research on implementation intentions shows that people who create specific if-then plans are significantly more likely to follow through on their goals. There was this meta-analysis done of 94 studies, and they found that implementation intentions have a medium to large effect on goal attainment. The reason? Because when you're already decided how you'll respond to a specific obstacle, you don't have to rely on in-the-moment decision making. So my if-then plan kicked in automatically that morning. If I can't run before work, then I'll run in the afternoon. There's no negotiation that's required here. There's no willpower that's depleted. It's just a pre-programmed response on my part that kept me moving forward toward my goal despite any sort of disruption. So importantly, this isn't about lowering standards. Instead, let's look at it as if we are simply building flexibility into your system from the start. Because the best structures include contingency plans, because the best structures assume that life will intervene, because, as we all know, it will. Now, Angela Duckworth's research on grit emphasizes that perseverance means demonstrating heightened intensity of persistence even after experiencing concrete setbacks or failures. The key phrase in there is after setbacks. Recovery is built into the definition. Duckworth found that individuals with grit see challenges and setbacks as opportunities for growth rather than some sort of evidence of personal inadequacy. They don't pretend that disruption doesn't happen. It does. But they develop the mental tools to bounce back from them. This also aligns really nicely with something that I've learned from running half marathons. The people who finish are the ones who know how to recalibrate their pace when conditions change without losing sight of the finish line. Now, here's where this gets practical for anyone leading a team. Your response to disruption models behavior for everyone watching. We've talked about this idea before in the Gold Standard Leadership Lab. If you respond to a missed deadline with panic and blame, what happens? Your team learns that deviation equals failure. They start hiding problems instead of surfacing them. They stop taking intelligent risks because the cost of a setback feels too high. When you respond to disruption with acknowledgement, recalibration, and return to the system, you're modeling something vastly different. You show your team that adaptation is a strength. You create what we have talked about many times here on the Leadership Lab, which is what Amy Edmondson at Harvard Business School calls psychological safety. Remember, that is the shared belief that the team is safe for interpersonal risk-taking. Edmondson's research demonstrates that psychological safety is the foundation of team learning and high performance. Teams where members feel safe to admit mistakes, ask questions, and surface concerns consistently outperform teams where members stay silent out of fear. And the single biggest factor in creating psychological safety? It's you, the leader. This connects directly to what I wrote about and I talked about in episode 37, the leadership of I got this. When you absorb stress for your team instead of passing it down, you create space for them to perform. When you model graceful recovery from disruption, you give them permission to do the same. Let's talk about the 3 R's of resilience. Now, this is a framework you can use when your own plans get disrupted. The first one is recognize. Acknowledge that something happened without freaking out. It's like, my morning didn't go as planned, carries different energy than I'm a failure who can't stick to anything. Number 2, recalibrate. Find the workaround. If you can't do the original thing, what's the next best option? What's still possible given the new constraints? And finally, number 3, return. get back to your system as soon as circumstances allow. The goal is pattern resumption. This framework of the 3 R's applies to personal routines, it applies to project timelines, it applies to strategic plans that get disrupted by market shifts. The scale changes, obviously, but the discipline still remains the same. The best structures we can set up for ourselves have to include the ability to be more flexible, be more nimble, to provide self-compassion. That's an evolution in how we think about discipline. Systems that are too rigid will absolutely 100% break under pressure. Adaptive systems, on the other hand, absorb disruption and keep moving. The leaders who build adaptive systems for themselves and for their teams are the ones who sustain performance over the long haul. So the next time life intervenes in your very, very carefully constructed routine, remember this: the discipline is in the recovery. So here are 3 reflection questions for you to think about this week. Number 1, when your routine gets disrupted, do you spiral into self-criticism, or do you practice graceful recovery? Number 2, what if-then plans could you create for the disruptions you know will eventually happen? And finally, number 3, how does your response to setbacks model behavior for your team? And for this week's challenge, I'd like you to notice one moment when your plan doesn't go according to schedule. Instead of guilt, practice the 3 R's. Recognize what happened without judgment, recalibrate by finding a workable alternative, and return to your system as soon as you can. Pay attention to how this shifts your energy compared to self-criticism. And remember, leadership isn't about perfection. It is about progress. Take this lesson, put it into action, and continue setting the gold standard in your own life and at work. See you all next time.